They had no armies, no cavalry, no siege weapons, just a blade and patience. And yet, caliphs trembled at their name. Crusader kings paid them tribute. Sultans slept with guards posted at every door, because when the order gave an order, someone died. Always. This is the story of history's most feared secret society. The men who didn't just kill kings, they brought down empires. And nobody ever saw them coming. The world before the assassins. To understand who the assassins were, you need to understand the world they were born into. The year is 1090 AD. The Islamic world is fracturing. The once mighty Abbasid Caliphate, the civilization that had built libraries while Europe lived in mud huts, is crumbling from within. Seljuk Turks hold the real power. Crusaders are massing at the borders of the Holy Land, and within Islam itself, a centuries-old fault line is splitting open. Sunni against Shia, majority against minority. The Ismaili Shia, a sect considered heretical by the Sunni establishment, face a choice, familiar to every religious minority throughout history: submit, flee, or fight back. One man chose to fight back. His name was Hassan-i Sabbah, and he would turn a handful of mountain peasants into the most feared killing force the medieval world had ever seen. But here is what makes Hassan remarkable. He was not a warlord. He was not a prince. He was not born into power. He built it from nothing, from scratch, from a stone fortress on a mountain that nobody else wanted. And from that fortress, he made the most powerful men in the world afraid to sleep. The man who built the machine. Hassan-i Sabbah was not a warrior. He was a scholar, educated in mathematics, astronomy, and Islamic theology. He had memorized the Quran by the age of 7. He could debate philosophers into silence, but knowledge alone couldn't protect his people. After years of study, travel, and meticulous planning, Hassan identified something no one else had seen. The key to power wasn't armies, it wasn't wealth, it was terrain. In 1090 AD, through a combination of infiltration and cunning, some accounts say bribery, others a brilliant deception involving a strip of leather and a fraudulent land deed, Hassan-i Sabbah seized control of Alamut, the Eagle's Nest, a mountain fortress perched 2,100 meters above sea level, accessible by a single, treacherous path, unassailable by any conventional army. From this stone throne in the sky, Hassan built something the world had never seen before. Not just an army, not just a political movement, a system. Hassan governed Alamut for 35 years. In that time, he never once left the fortress. Not once. He didn't need to. He recruited brilliantly. Young men, educated, disciplined, deeply ideological, trained not just to kill, but to infiltrate, to blend, to become someone else entirely. A merchant, a scholar, a servant, a friend. They could wait for months, embedded in a court, eating at the same table as the man they were sent to kill, smiling at the right moments, saying the right things, completely invisible, until they weren't. And here is what most people don't know. The assassins, unlike the cliched Hollywood killers, almost never tried to escape. They walked openly into courts, into mosques, into the personal chambers of their targets. They waited, and when they struck, they used a dagger. Always a dagger. Always in public. Because the kill wasn't the point. The terror was the point. A private death is just a death. A public death in front of witnesses, in front of a court, in front of the most powerful men in the room, is a message. And Hassan-i Sabbah was always sending messages. The empires they shook. Hassan's first major target was Nizam al-Mulk, the Grand Vizier of the Seljuk Empire, the most powerful minister in the Islamic world, the man who controlled an empire stretching from Central Asia to the borders of Byzantium. In 1092, a young man dressed as a Sufi mystic approached Nizam al-Mulk's litter during a royal procession. He appeared to present a petition. He drove a dagger through the Grand Vizier's chest. Nizam al-Mulk was dead within hours. The Seljuk Empire never fully recovered. Succession crises tore it apart. The unified power that had dominated the region fractured, never to be the same again. One blade, one moment, an empire destabilized. Think about that. Not a war, not an invasion, not a decade of military campaigns. One man, one dagger, one afternoon, and a superpower began to die. But it wasn't just Muslim rulers who feared them. The Crusaders, the Christian warriors who had carved kingdoms from the Holy Land, had a complicated relationship with the assassins. Sometimes enemies, sometimes, quietly, allies against shared targets. And here is something that sounds impossible, but is historically documented. The Crusader kingdoms paid tribute to the assassins, not because they were conquered, because it was cheaper to pay than to die. The Count of Tripoli, the King of Jerusalem, they knew that a refusal meant waking up one morning with a dagger placed on their pillow. The assassin's calling card, their message written in silence. We were here. We can do it again, whenever we choose. That image, the knife in the night, was as carefully calculated as any military campaign, because terror, properly applied, is cheaper than war. Always has been, always will be. Fingers into every empire. Over 150 years, the Order of Assassins struck targets across modern-day Iran, Syria, Iraq, and the Crusader states. Caliphs, viziers, Crusader knights, Sunni scholars who condemned them publicly, anyone who threatened the order or its allies. Their Syrian branch, led by a figure known across Europe as the Old Man of the Mountain, operated almost independently from Alamut, and it was this branch that became the stuff of legend in the West. Crusaders brought their stories home, wildly exaggerated, often terrifying, sometimes completely false, but containing enough truth to chill. And this is where the word comes from: assassin. The most accepted theory connects it to hashishin, hashish users, a slur applied by their enemies, a propaganda label designed to paint them as drug-crazed fanatics rather than disciplined ideologues. Because if you cannot defeat them, you discredit them. Marco Polo, writing nearly 2 centuries after the Order's peak, described a hidden garden of paradise where recruits were shown a preview of heaven they could return to if they died in service of the Order. Almost certainly a myth, but myths stick. And this one traveled all the way to medieval Europe, where assassin entered the French language, and from there, every language on earth. A word born from fear, carried across centuries, still with us today. Every time you use that word, you are speaking Hassan-i Sabbah's legacy without even knowing it. The storm from the east. For 166 years, the Order had been effectively untouchable. No army could storm Alamut by force. No ruler could neutralize the threat through conventional means. Caliphs tried, sultans tried, Crusader kings tried. All of them failed. And then, in 1256, Hulagu Khan arrived. The grandson of Genghis Khan did not deal in subtlety. The Mongols were not afraid of assassins. They had broken China. They had shattered the greatest armies in the known world. A mountain fortress was an inconvenience, not an obstacle. Hulagu sent an ultimatum to the Grand Master of Alamut: surrender or be destroyed. The Grand Master, lacking the iron will of his predecessors, surrendered. The Mongols dismantled Alamut, stone by stone. They destroyed its legendary library, one of the greatest repositories of knowledge in the medieval Islamic world. Centuries of accumulated science, philosophy, history, gone in days. The Grand Master was promised his life in exchange for cooperation. Then the Mongols killed him anyway, because that is what the Mongols did. Promises were for people the Mongols intended to spare. The Syrian branch survived longer, absorbed gradually into the Mamluk Sultanate. Remnants of the Nizari Ismaili community survive to this day, led peacefully by the Aga Khan. Millions strong, philanthropic, scholarly. The daggers, at last, were put away. What they left behind. But what the assassins left behind cannot be dismantled. They gave the world a word. They proved, for the first time in history, that an asymmetric force, properly organized, ideologically committed, could challenge empires that dwarfed it in every conventional measure of power. No cavalry, no siege engines, just precision, patience, and a willingness to die for an idea. Think about every covert operation in the modern world, every intelligence agency, every targeted elimination, every shadow war fought beneath the surface of history. All of it carries in its DNA the logic that Hassan-i Sabbah worked out in his mountain fortress 9 centuries ago. The idea that the death of one carefully chosen man can change the course of history, that precision beats force, that patience beats power, that the shadows are sometimes more dangerous than the battlefield. That is the assassin's real legacy, not the daggers, the idea. Hassan-i Sabbah spent 35 years in Alamut and never left, not once. He had no armies, no cavalry, no siege weapons, just a system, and the patience to build it. And when he died in 1124, the empire he had shaken, not with force, but with fear, was still trembling. Caliphs had trembled at his name. Crusader kings had paid tribute. Sultans had slept with guards at every door. Because he understood something the great armies of his age did not. Power doesn't always come from the front of the battlefield. Sometimes it comes from the shadows. If you want more stories of the forgotten forces that shaped our world, the warriors, the orders, the hidden powers behind the great empires, please like, subscribe, and comment now. Every week, we go deeper.